Hello and welcome to this edition of UK ADI. Today I would like to talk about the new driving test and in particular following SatNav during the independent portion of the driving test. As you're probably aware, from the 4th of December 2017, you will now be required to follow a SatNav on a particular route for about 20 minutes. And today, I would like to give you tips on how you can accomplish this during the driving test. The first tip is the most important tip of all. As a driving test candidate, you might be worrying about what happens if I take the wrong exit or take the wrong turning. Now, let me assure you that even an experienced driver like myself, I do get it wrong when following a SatNav. I might, for example, turn a little bit early or miss my turning. So remember this, when you're on the driving test and you're following a SatNav, the most important thing that you need to be doing is making sure that whatsoever you do is safe. If, for example, the SatNav says, in 20 yards, I'd like you to turn right. If for some reason you miss the turning, as long as you indicate right and you turn right, then you haven't done anything wrong. Unless, for example, you turn right into a road that says no entry, then that obviously is an issue. But if, for example, you turn right either early or late, you haven't done anything wrong. What the examiner might do is he might then intervene and just give you some verbal directions to get you back onto the route and then allow you to continue to follow the SatNav. Another example might be at a roundabout. The SatNav might say, at the roundabout, I'd like you to take the fourth exit towards Watford, for example. If, for some reason, at the roundabout, you get into the right-hand lane, you signal, and you come off at the fourth exit instead of a third exit, then you haven't done anything wrong. All the examiner will do would be, he will then intervene and say, take so and so directions until he can get you back on the route. Or what might happen, especially on roundabouts, is the examiner might say, keep your indicator on, we're going to go around the roundabout one more time, and he might then tell you, oh, I want you to signal left to come off the next exit, just to make sure that you don't go the wrong way, for example, because taking the fourth exit might add an additional 10 minutes to the driving test and he doesn't want to be late, so he might intervene, but that is okay. My second tip is, if you have not already done so, I would advise you to have a look at my video that I recorded some time ago about independent driving, because all the skills and the information that I provided there will be required, especially now that your independent driving will be twice as long, so 20 minutes instead of 10 minutes. So watch my previous video about independent driving, because it gives you a lot of information that you can use for following a SatNav during the driving test. My third tip is you need to practice getting used to estimating distances depending upon your driving speed. So during your driving lessons, you want to be looking ahead and trying to estimate, for example, because the SatNav will be telling you in 100 yards you need to turn left, or in a mile I would like you to turn right at the roundabout. So you need to get used to estimating distances while driving, because you need to have an idea of how long you need to go before you need to start thinking about your maneuver. Depending upon the SatNav that is being used, you might be getting reminders about where you need to be going, but the speed that you're traveling at and obviously the distance involved might mean that you only have one reminder before you need to either change lanes or at least get yourself prepared. So you need to start practicing how to estimate distances, 100 yards, 200 yards, half a mile, 1 mile, so that you can start preparing, because these are skills that you will be using for following the SatNav on the driving test. As I mentioned earlier in this video, the examiner might intervene verbally to give you some instructions while following the SatNav. Don't think that because the examiner has intervened to give you a verbal direction that you have therefore committed a driving fault, and you then let your guard down and don't give your best. The examiner can intervene at any point to make sure that the test does not go longer than expected. So if you do take a wrong turning, the examiner will intervene and either direct you for a couple of turns to get you back onto the route, or he might actually abandon the SatNav and start directing you back to where he wants you to be. The examiners are very familiar with the area, so they will anticipate the move that you are going to make, and they will either stop you from going the wrong way because they don't want, like I said, the test to go longer than expected, or they want to try and prevent you from, for example, taking a wrong turn in and ending up on the motorway, which obviously will be a problem, not only time-wise but also safety-wise. So don't be alarmed just because the examiner does intervene verbally. Obviously, if the examiner does intervene to stop you from making a serious fault, then yes, that would be something that would fail the test, but they might intervene just to give you a verbal direction to stop you from going the wrong way, which is not a driving fault. As a driving test candidate, the examiner will expect you to be at a particular minimum level. Therefore, you're no longer a learner, so you should be able to obey traffic signs, road markings, and make sure that whatever you do while independent driving is safe. So it is important that you do not just blindly follow a SatNav. You need to make sure that you get into the correct lane for whatever maneuver you need to do. So a typical example would be if, for example, the SatNav says follow the road ahead, or you are approaching a junction and it hasn't said anything, then that means that you're following the road ahead. So make sure that if you're in the left-hand lane does not say left only, because if you're in the left-hand lane and it says left only, then you would need to check your mirror signal and go left, because you cannot follow the road ahead if the road marking says you can only turn left from that lane. Same thing if you are going to be turning right, then you need to make sure that you prepare and get yourself into the right hand lane early, and therefore get into the right hand lane for the maneuver. So follow road markings, traffic signs. You need to remember that the SatNav will not always give you an instruction when approaching a junction. For example, if you are approaching a crossroads and the SatNav does not say anything, that means that you are following the road ahead. You therefore need to make sure that you are in the proper lane for following the road ahead, because the left-hand lane might be left turn only. So if you find you are in the left-hand lane and it's saying you can only turn left, then you need to check your mirrors, indicate left and go left. When dealing with roundabouts during your independent driving, remember, if you do think that you're not sure where you're going, you can go round the roundabout one more time and then have another go. So if, for example, you are supposed to take the third turning and you can say, oh, I've just missed my third turning, just keep your indicator on, go around the roundabout, and then you can have another go at the exit. That is not a driving fault. In fact, you could go round 2 or 3 times, as long as what you do is safe, you have not impeded any other driver, you have signaled properly, then that is not a driving fault. So on the roundabouts, take your time, make sure you are safe, and then come off at the exit that is required. Obviously, the more you practice roundabouts during your independent driving following a SatNav, the better you get at it. So take as much practice as possible. Another tip for following SatNavs during your independent portion of the driving test is to make use of your instructor's local knowledge of the area. Most instructors will be familiar with the area that you will be taking the test on, so ask them questions about some of the complex junctions that you might get, how to deal with these. And if you are lucky enough and your instructor was part of the trial period, then they might even be familiar with the routes that they would take, so you can take advantage of that and practice following a SatNav if your instructor already knows the routes, and so you can practice those. But the most important thing is to remember that whatever you do when you're driving, you need to be safe. So practice as much as possible in the local area where you're going to be taking the test. Your instructor should be able to take you around all the complex junctions, even if he does not know the exact test route that will be used for this by the SatNav. As long as you have practice in the area, then it's most likely that you should be able to deal with it when you get it on the driving test while following the SatNav. Finally, as most of you who are familiar with my postings either on Twitter or my driving videos will be aware, practice, practice, practice. Don't think that because you've done independent driving with a SatNav 1 or 2 times, you're going to be okay for the test. Get as much practice as possible under your belt. The more practice you have, the higher the chances are of you passing or being relaxed during the independent portion of the driving test if you are familiar with what you are expected to do. And that is the key to success. Get as much practice as you can so that when you come to the driving test, it is not something new and you are relaxed, and you can therefore concentrate on driving and not just listen to a voice and be worried about what do I need to do here, or I don't know where I'm going. If you've practiced it long enough, then the chances are you'll be more relaxed, you'll be able to do what is required, and hopefully you will have a good result at the end. All the best, and if you have any comments about this video or any questions, please post a comment and I will reply. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. If it has been helpful to you, please do subscribe to my YouTube channel, like the video, and obviously share this with your friends. And I wish you all the best with your driving test.